Hey everybody, Craig from Flaming Fowl, the developers of Gloomhaven Digital, was kind enough to jump on my stream and do a Q&A regarding the Jaws of the Lion expansion and just some general questions as well that he fielded about the game and what's been going on with the game recently. So this video is just going to be a recap really of all of the facts that we now know about Jaws that he was kind enough to give us, all of that extra information. I tried to use all of your comments that people left in chat during the stream, but also left on the YouTube video. So hopefully I've managed to kind of answer those questions for you. I'm going to split this video into kind of 3 separate parts. So I'll do a general kind of overview of like how Jaws of the Lion is going to work and the implementation, like the general kind of story elements of the game and the mechanics of the game. Then we'll talk a little bit about characters and how they've kind of been worked into the game, and then we'll just go into like just general other stuff as like part 3 on what kind of stuff, just general stuff that's coming to the game, because a lot of people just had some general questions as well about the game and things that might be in the works. If you do enjoy the video, please do toss it a like. It does really help me out here on YouTube, or subscribe, and also come over to twitch.tv/ManitoryQuest. It's where we actually streamed this Q&A live. So come over every Monday, Wednesday and Sunday where I'm usually playing Gloomhaven. So come hang out, and if you've got any questions, you can always ask me live there. So first up, the big one. People want to know release date and price. Well, we got kind of a loose release date. We're looking at Q2 this year. So not too far away, but we're probably looking at sometime in the summer. We didn't get an exact date. They're still very much developing it. They're still kind of in the early stages. They've been working on it for quite a while, it turns out. They've been working on it since the original game has kind of been released and came out of early access. They've been working on it for a long time, but the actual sort of release date has not been fully set. It's just Q2 this year, so it's soon, but yeah, they're still keeping that date pretty flexible. In terms of price, they weren't able to comment on price, which is kind of unsurprising at this point in time. We don't even know the release date, so it was unlikely that we were going to get a price. So just sort of hold fire for that. And they did also confirm that the full kind of story content is going to be voice acted by Alec Newman, who was the narrator that's been used in the campaign in the digital version too, which I think is really good because he did an amazing job with the campaign. So excited to see what he can do with all of the Jaws stuff. The Jaws content will be available in both the campaign and in the Guildmaster mode, with the main focus though being on actually integrating the story within the campaign mode. In Guildmaster, you're going to get access to the characters, the items, and the battle goals as well, I expect, but it isn't going to contain the main story plot lines and scenarios that you have in Jaws of the Lion. This isn't going to be a separate game mode. This is going to be accessed from within the modes that already exist. So in the campaign mode, you will need to complete scenario 2. So you need to do Black Barrow and Barrow Lair, and that will actually open up the Jaws storyline content. So from that point onwards, you can just follow the Jaws story all the way through with all of the different scenarios. And you will actually have the option to use all of the Jaws characters as starting characters. So from scenario 1, from when you first start up your save, if you have got the DLC enabled, you will be able to use those 4 characters as your starting characters. So you can do Barrow Lair and you can do Black Barrow, both of those as the Jaws of the Lion if you want, and then move on to that immediately afterwards. The tutorial missions from the physical game, the first 5 missions that kind of just gradually introduce players to mechanics, are going to be in the game, but instead of being learning scenarios, they're actually going to be fully fleshed out scenarios. So given the full Gloomhaven treatment. This is because they're not going to have any of that tutorial content, any of the cards that were used for the tutorial purposes, or that pacing of those, because they've got their own tutorial in the game already. So that kind of makes sense. Like, why add an extra tutorial later on? Doesn't make too much sense to me. So actually it's just going to start from that, but they're actually going to be building those scenarios out to be fully fleshed out scenarios. So that could be interesting too. A little bit more of a twist and a little bit more story and a little bit more gameplay there than perhaps you would get otherwise with the standard game. The Jaws missions will be fully playable with any of the base Gloomhaven core characters or unlockable characters. They basically integrate all within your campaign. So you can go and do a couple of campaign missions, then you could go do a Jaws mission. You could use your Jaws characters in the main campaign. You could use your every character is basically interchangeable. It's like that just gets integrated as a separate kind of quest chain, if you like, inside your campaign mode. So you don't need to worry about having a different party or anything like that. It's all going to be just your party going on it. So if you wanted to maybe start doing with the Jaws of the Lion content with those 4 characters, you could just go off and do that if you want. Then you could go off and do like the main missions with them as well. So all of that's going to be interchangeable, and it's like the content is just being basically just dropped in as like, hey, this is another side mission that you can kind of go on, or a set of side quests that you can go on. When starting a brand new campaign save, you're going to have the option to enable the DLC content, the Jaws of the Lion content. If you do that, then obviously you've got to play the first 2 scenarios, and then you can get into those story missions. But if you've got an existing save, you will have the option to convert your save into DLC to basically like add it in. Once you do that though, there's no going back. So you either have to have the DLC or you don't. And this is because of the level of integration that is going on with this DLC. But if you have already completed the first 2 missions, and you know, maybe you've got quite an advanced save, that mission will just immediately become available. So the first mission from the Jaws of the Lion sort of story chain will appear for you, and those characters will be available for you to create from the create character screen. For multiplayer players, you will need to all have the DLC if anybody wants to use Jaws of the Lion content. It is an option that you need to add on. You need to select when creating a campaign, or if you're converting an existing campaign into it. And if any player does not have that DLC, they will not be able to play with you. So you may need to keep some saves separate if perhaps you have a group of friends who you're just playing through the regular campaign. They don't own the DLC, or they don't want to have the DLC. You might have to have separate saves that are just base regular Gloomhaven and then DLC Gloomhaven if you want to have the DLC yourself, but you're playing with other people who don't have the DLC. So for integration, items and battle goals from Jaws are going to basically be completely integrated within your regular campaign save. So this means that those battle goals that were only printed in Jaws of the Lion are now going to become part of just the greater deck, essentially, for battle goals. So you can have Jaws of the Lion battle goals in just your regular games as well. So that's why this integration is quite full, and why you can't kind of go back to the old save, because these battle goals are going to get mixed in, and the items are going to be available to every character to be able to use as you unlock them, as you would do by playing the story. So it very much is just going to become part of your save. Like, that's really the main takeaway here, I think, from how it's going to be integrated, is that think of it as just basically just being completely integrated within your regular kind of campaign. Some items are not going to be making an appearance that did make an appearance in Jaws of the Lion. There's about 10 unique items that are actually coming across from Jaws of the Lion, but any item that kind of functionally has a better version already available in Gloomhaven. So weathered boots is the most obvious example. That was just a move +1 boot, whereas in regular Gloomhaven you get boots of striding, which is a move +2 boot as like your standard starting item boot. So items like that aren't going to be implemented because they're just sort of strictly worse than what is currently available, which makes sense, I think, because those items were printed very much more to the power level of that. But 10 unique items are coming across, and anything that was like a special unique effect or different enough in some way will kind of come across. For the Jaws specific city events, they're actually going to be only available when you go to do a Jaws mission. So they're not going to be filtered into the regular event deck. They're actually going to be specifically drawn when you go to do a Jaws mission. So when you select one and you go to it, much like a road event, you will then draw a Jaws specific city event. And this is because those events are more tied closely to the story and what's going on there, and they want to kind of keep that separate. It's not really practical to be able to mix them in with just the regular city event deck that you have for the main game. The story itself as well is being tweaked to make it a little bit more generic and to kind of fit the mercenary party rather than you being specifically playing the Jaws of the Lion. It's got a very strong storyline that implies your team playing the Jaws of the Lion mercenary band, but that isn't really the style of like the campaign. The campaign is your group of mercenaries, and it's a little bit more generic. So they're making some general changes to the way the story is told to kind of make more sense from the fact that, well, you could be playing the Brute, you could be playing the Spellweaver, you could be playing any number of different characters and at different points, and you might have gone off and done other missions and then come back to here. So they're trying to make it fit better within the kind of scope of the campaign with the story beats and some of the story text. We can probably expect that some scenario mechanics will also probably have been tweaked or reworked to kind of better work in digital. We've got quite a few scenarios like this already from the regular game that had to be tweaked in some way to work in digital. So expect there to be a few tweaks like that, like similarly to how they have. However, they have had to create all brand new tiles for every single scenario because the layouts are very unique because of the fact that it uses the book rather than using the same dungeon tiles that were used in the regular game. So they've created all new tiles for that. They're going to be using all new artwork. Lots of new assets are all going to be included. So it's definitely going to feel like Jaws of the Lion. They're not just repurposing already assets that they have in the game to kind of create this content. It is going to be lots and lots of new artwork and new content for sure. So talking now about characters, all of the Jaws characters will draw personal quests and retire just like any regular mercenary would, because they are completely interchangeable within the main campaign and the Jaws content. And they're also going to follow the prosperity rules for new characters. So this does mean that if you do have a high prosperity level save that you're currently working through, when you do unlock the DLC and if you activate it, you could potentially have quite a high level Jaws of the Lion mercenary come into your party straight away. I'd probably encourage people to not do this. I think for me personally, I'm probably going to start off with getting my characters at low level and just enjoy playing that leveling process through the story in a natural way. But absolutely, you know, if that's something that you wanted to do and you just want to dive straight in, you've got the ability to do so. Some characters have had their perks amended or changed to better kind of suit the full scope of the campaign. And yes, this does include the Red Guard getting the ignore negative item effects perks. They're going to be able to wear armor, which I think a lot of people are going to be really excited about. Also, they have added the ignore negative scenario effects perk to, I think, the demolition and the void warden were confirmed. So there's been some changes there to that, and maybe some other wider changes to the perks just to make them better fit with a regular kind of campaign setting of Gloomhaven as well. Some card abilities have been changed or tweaked or are being. We don't really have too many specifics of what changes have happened, but I think for the most part you're going to see that they're going to be pretty much the same. The only difference here is the demolitionist is actually going to be having quite a large rework. Sounds like they are working with Isaac and the wider Gloomhaven team on doing this, because a lot of the abilities that the character has are to do with the obstacles and to do with the layout of the particular scenarios in Jaws of the Lion. So it doesn't really make too much sense for her to be able to drop back in, and she doesn't really function very well just in a generic scenario. So they've had to rework that character in some way. We don't have any specifics. It is very much a work in progress, but I think it's good to hear, because that character is the one that everybody always kind of nitpicks a little bit and says, well, if you were to take that and put it in the original Gloomhaven, it's not going to function very well. So good to hear that they are actually addressing those issues. So yeah, excited to see what happens there. Enhancements are going to be available. There were already enhancement dots on the Jaws of the Lion character cards if people did want to go and enhance them in the regular game or wanted to sort of experiment with that. However, you are just going to have to unlock enhancements in the main campaign like you would. So you're going to have to follow the story along and actually unlock that before you can start doing enhancements. So perhaps you will end up wanting to do that before you go and do the Jaws of the Lion stuff. Not too sure, but yeah, you're certainly going to want to unlock enhancements in the main campaign at some point, so then you can start using them with your Jaws of the Lion characters too. The legacy parts of Jaws of the Lion, so the sealed boxes that you get and anything kind of above level 5 and above is considered to be spoiler territory. All of that kind of stuff is going to be included in some way. We have to be very careful in the Q&A to not really say anything specific, and obviously Craig didn't want to really reveal too much about that because they are still actively working on it, but he did reassure us that they are working on some really cool things, and we are going to see some things, so don't worry, that element is still going to be there. And yeah, they sound like they're pretty excited about it, so that's good to hear too. A random question that I was asked a lot during the live stream and in some of my comments that I got was, how is the favorite going to work from the hatchet? I think a lot of people are hoping to actually see a physical axe used and actually embedded in the enemies. Craig kind of dispelled that as being something that probably won't really be possible. It sounds like it's going to be just like a UI element, and it sounds like it's probably going to function similarly to the Angry Faces mechanics. So if you know that character, you know what I'm talking about. So they are still developing it though, and they have said that they're working on some really cool animations. The animation work is looking really nice, and the characters are really coming together nicely, and they're really excited about that. So no definitive answer on that, just that yeah, it's that embedded axe idea is probably not going to be possible, but you know, I had to ask because everybody else was really excited to try and find out if that could be possible. to other things discussed and coming into the game or not coming into the game that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the DLC, a retry scenario option is being added to the game. So when you fail, you're going to have a button to just be able to immediately jump straight back to the start of the scenario and retry. This will actually wipe any negative effects that you have from a road event, so you won't have to go back to Gloomhaven and start again. So I think this is going to be a really nice option for new players who in particular maybe fail a mission and then go and try the mission again, but then they get a really rough road event early on. It can be a bit discouraging. So that's going to be a really nice way for you to just jump straight back in. You're going to still keep the gold and XP that you earned with that first attempt, and then when you retry, basically it puts you at the start just without that road event. So yeah, I think that's a really nice option to help speed up gameplay, and certainly I'll probably use it because often I don't feel like I've really earned the trip back to Gloomhaven to go do a city event. Sometimes if I fail, I just want to jump straight back in and retry, so I'll probably be using this function, so I think it's really good. There is another optional house rule coming to the game, which is that summons will drop piles of gold when they die. This is something that I know a lot of people will be excited to hear. It is a Jaws rule. However, it's also a rule from Frosthaven that's come in. I think this is a really good rule. It's just a simplification of the rule. It may lead to you being able to get lots and lots of gold very early. I'm unsure as to whether or not I will recommend playing this with the campaign yet, just because perhaps it might make gold farming a little bit too easy. But to be honest, there's many ways you can farm gold, so maybe I'm just overreacting a little bit there. There is already the line of sight rules implemented as an optional house rule already in the game, so it's not quite Jaws of the Lion rules, but it's about 99% Jaws of the Lion rules. It's just not any point of the hex. They just added a middle point for the line of sight, so it's pretty much the Jaws rule, so that's already in the game. The only other rule from Jaws that I'm aware of while recording this that might be interesting would have been the focus rules. There's a slight change in the way that focus works with ranged enemies and their range and who they're going to target. That won't be changing. They've obviously spent a lot of time developing the focus rules and the enemy AI to this point, so don't expect any changes to the way that enemies are going to essentially react or how they're going to focus you in any way. That will all remain the same as it is at the moment. Some people were asking if a console port of Gloomhaven Digital will be possible. They said that they have nothing currently on the cards, nothing that they have to announce or anything, but it is something that they are interested in, and it is something that they are considering. So it's not like a hard no here, but it's not really a yes either. So don't really have too much news to give there. They have also said that Steam Deck support hasn't really been looked at yet. A few people were interested to know if it could be played on Steam Deck. I don't know much about that platform myself, and neither did Craig at the time. So basically, there's no official line on this at the moment, but it's not a hard no on this front. And it sounds like potentially they could, they're open to the idea, and it's not a closed door. It could be possible. Envelope X is a topic that comes up very, very regularly in these Q&As, and it was a absolute hard no from Craig here. This is never going to happen. It is meant as a physical game exclusive bonus, essentially, for Easter egg for physical game players to find and play with. They have no interest in implementing it in any way. So yep, I mean, there's your definitive answer, really, right from the horse's mouth, I'm afraid, folks. So no Envelope X coming to digital. Future expansions, like after Jaws of the Lion DLC, there's nothing confirmed or denied, of course. They are just working on this DLC. We couldn't really expect them to suddenly announce 3 or 4 more DLCs, but they are open to the possibility of doing more down the line. Certainly that door is open, and they're just taking it as it comes. So possibly Forgotten Circles, possibly their own content, digital exclusive content. They've got nothing to announce, but yeah, they're obviously open to the idea of it. They're not saying that this is the end of Gloomhaven Digital or in any kind of way. I brought up a few things that I quite like the idea of, with some UI changes and stuff like that, some kind of quality of life changes to maybe bring in some more information from the from the board game resources. So being able to bring in things like monster decks, like the ability to be able to see what monsters' abilities can do. We also talked a little bit about whether or not it'd be possible to have a bit more information on the pre-mission screen, so like a layout of what the scenario might look like, so that players can maybe better plan for the length of scenario that they have. Generally, it sounds like the devs are really happy with where the game is right now with those kinds of things. Like, there's no ongoing kind of development plan or anything at the moment that they are working on in terms of of changing or improving the UI. Sounds like they're really happy with the way the game looks and is at the moment and the amount of information that is there. There's also no plan to add an undo button. That's another thing that a lot of people ask all the time. Really, it's unfortunately it's just baked into the code. It's very, very difficult for them to do. So, you know, it's not going to come. It's just unfortunately not possible with the way the game is designed, or at least I guess if it was possible, it would be so long-winded maybe for them to do that it's not worth the time now at this point. They'd rather put that time into bettering the game with like the DLC and stuff like that. So yeah, hopefully that helps answer a few of those kind of lingering questions that people had. Okay, so that pretty much sums up everything we talked about in the live stream. I will put a link down below to the full unedited sort of footage from the Q&A session if you're interested. It was about an hour that we talked with Craig, so if you do want to go through that, then go below. But I thought I would just try and summarize this into a nice quick video for everyone who doesn't have the time to watch that or doesn't want to. But I'll put a link down below. It'll be an unlisted video because it's, you know, not something that I really want to promote. But for people who do want to watch it, I know there'll be a few. You've got the option down below. All right, so there we have all of the Jaws of the Lion DLC news. Are you guys as excited as I am? I think this was a really great announcement. I think it's very excited. I think the devs seem to be definitely working on it in the right way. I'm very excited that it's going to be integrated with everything. You can finally play all of your regular characters in Jaws of the Lion, all of your Jaws of the Lion characters in your regular kind of campaign. It's going to be great. I think it's just opening up more possibilities for players. So really, really good move by the devs, and I'm very, very excited for this. So roll on Q2, and hopefully it's the beginning of Q2 and not the end of Q2, but we'll see how long we have to wait, but hopefully not too long. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you did enjoy the video. I do really, really appreciate it. It helps me out so much here on growing the channel on YouTube. Also, come over to twitch.tv/MandatoryQuest every Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday, where I'm playing Gloomhaven, talking Gloomhaven. So if you've got any questions, you can always catch me over there on a live stream. Okay, everyone, all that's left for me to say is thank you again so much for watching. I will catch you in the next video. Bye.
I think still, yeah.
That's the blessing from Cab. That's the blessing from.
Isaac, at this point, can we get your approval to add an additional attack modifier deck for allies in the digital?